All right, welcome to week 3 of a cookie bar month. Now, if you missed week 1, check out up there those yummy, delicious Biscoff bars. And in week 2, we made those frosted sugar cookie bars. Easiest sugar cookies you'll ever make. They are just so yummy with a buttercream frosting and sprinkles on top. But this week we are making almond bars. Now, I'm a huge almond lover. So if you're an almond lover too, you are going to love these bars. Now, I've got some other amazing almond flavored recipes here on Small Batch Big Taste you don't want to miss. If you haven't made this almond torte, you're missing out. Just trust me on this one and make that one. And also this French almond cake is light and delicious and so yummy. But for today, we're making almond bars. Now, these almond bars have a shortbread crust topped with an almond, kind of a gooey almond filling, and then crunchy almonds on top. And like I said, if you're an almond lover, you are going to love these. And for these almond bars, once again, we're going to use our trusty 9x5 loaf pan, which we have lined with a parchment sling. If you haven't checked out my video on how to cut a parchment sling, you can find it up there. You don't want to skip this step. It makes it so easy to remove the bars and then cut them and serve them. And it just takes a few seconds to cut a sling. All right, we're going to start with the shortbread base for these almond bars. And for that, we're going to use 1/2 cup of all-purpose flour. I'm going to add in a tablespoon of granulated sugar. We need 1/8 teaspoon of salt. And then I've got in here 1/4 cup of cold salted butter that I have just cut up into little cubes. So what we're going to do is we want to use you can use a pastry blender or you could use a fork, like 2 forks. And we're going to incorporate that butter into the flour mixture just until it kind of resembles a coarse meal texture. And after we've got that ready, then we're going to add in just a little bit of cold water. You want it ice cold water, so I've just put some ice in this measuring cup and some water. And then we're just going to add it in. I'm just going to add in probably maybe 1/2 tablespoon because you want to put in just enough to bring this dough together. So again, a lot of it's going to depend on where you are. I'm here in Utah where it's dry. If it's a rainy day, it may not take as much. So that's why you just want to do it a little bit at a time. Sometimes until you don't see any dry flour. And then you can use your hands to start bringing it together. And you don't want it too sticky, okay? You want to be able just to bring it together with your hands into a nice little ball of dough so that it's maybe slightly tacky, but it's not sticky at all. All right, and we're going to take that and we're just going to push it in, press it into our loaf pan in a nice even layer on the bottom. You really don't even have to bring it together into a ball. You could just put it in here when it was still kind of a little crumbly and then push it together too. I just kind of wanted to show you what texture you needed it to be. We're going to bake this in a 375-degree Fahrenheit oven for about 15 to 20 minutes or until it's lightly golden brown. So while the shortbread crust is baking, we're going to go ahead and make that gooey almond filling. You want a small saucepan, 1/2 cup of granulated sugar, and 1/2 cup of heavy whipping cream. And you really want to use whipping cream for this. Don't substitute out milk. And then some almond extract. 1/4 teaspoon. I like a lot of almond flavor. There we go. And we're going to mix that together, and then we're going to put this over some heat. We want to let it boil for 2 to 3 minutes. All right, then you want to remove it from the heat after it's boiled for 2 to 3 minutes, and then we're going to add in 1/2 cup of sliced almonds, not slivered almonds. I'm using sliced raw almonds, not toasted. We're just going to pour those in, give it a stir, and then we're going to set this aside and let it cool for about 15 minutes, or basically until the bottom shortbread comes out of the oven. All right, I pulled these out when they were just starting to turn golden brown around the edges. It doesn't need to, you don't want it to be golden brown across the whole top, just the edges starting to turn golden brown, because we're going to put it back in to bake again after we add on our almond topping. We're going to pour that over the top. Get all of it out, and then just take a fork and kind of just make sure that the almonds are evenly distributed across the top of the cookie bar. Now also you want to pop that heat up from 375 to 400 degrees in your oven before you put these back in. So these are gonna go back in your oven for 25 to 30 minutes until the top is nice and lightly golden brown. All right, here we go. Just removed it from the pan and you can see that they're nice and golden brown around the edges and still look maybe a little gooey in the middle. That's a good thing. They have a tendency a little bit to stick, so you may need to run a sharp knife like around the edges to loosen it from the paper in the pan. All right, now I have not let it cool totally just because I'm impatient. If you're in a hurry, you can stick it into the refrigerator to help it cool faster. So I'm gonna go ahead and slice these. All right, should we give them a taste? They are, you almond lovers, you're gonna love them. The crunch of the almonds, with that gooey almond filling and the tender shortbread crust, so good. Now, be sure you turn on notifications down below so that you'll be notified for next week's cookie bar recipe. We are taking one of my all-time favorite bar cookies and we're dressing it up a little bit, so you're not gonna wanna miss it. So thanks for joining me in the kitchen and we'll see you in the next video.